I'm here with UK wine writer and wine authority, Jamie Goode, in Wellington, New Zealand. How are you, Jamie?
Very good. Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that term authority though. That sounds quite strict. I'm actually quite a laid-back sort of guy. Well, I'd like to think I am. So.
Well, this is the first time I've actually bumped into you in person, but I've been following your website for many a year and much of your writing. What brings you to Wellington?
Well, a gig really. I'm doing a talk tomorrow at this Pinot Noir 2010 symposium, which we're at now, which is a really interesting symposium that brings together New Zealand's best Pinot Noir and all the winemakers, the wine trade, and some consumers. We're going to have some fun. There's some quite interesting discussions going on. But I've also used this chance to, when you fly halfway around the world, you don't just want to sit in a conference room for 4 days. So I've also been visiting New Zealand's wine regions, and I've been catching up with 2 regions that I think are very important, but which I've not been to before. There's Central Otago, down in the south, and also Martinborough, which are both regions that are famous for their Pinot Noir.
Now, have you already been down to Central?
Yes, yeah, I came in about a week ago and started off in Queenstown and I visited maybe half a dozen producers, but also did some tastings more broadly of different Central Otago wines.
Now, we are actually visiting Central Otago next week, going down to stay with Felton and Carrick. Did you have a chance to taste them?
Felton, awesome, yeah, and Carrick is really good as well. Carrick with a new high-end wine called Excelsior, which is worth looking out for. Really nice Pinot Noir. Felton Road, I think, it's one of those producers you can buy everything they make without a blink, because everything they do seems to be great.
Was there anything else in Central Otago that really took your fancy?
Gibston Valley. They're based in Gibston, but they don't. Most of the wines actually from elsewhere in the region. I mean, that happens quite commonly there because some regions perform better some vintages, some sub-regions better other vintages. So often producers have vineyards they hedge their bets, have vineyards in different regions. But Gibston, I was really impressed. They've got a really good young winemaker there, and he's doing some really good things.
Now, have you already been to Martinborough?
Yes, I've been to Martinborough twice in this trip already.
Oh, right.
And I caught a Syrah symposium in the middle, which was in Hawke's Bay.
I saw you up there.
Either side of that, I was in Martinborough. And I had some really good visits, really good. Especially at Orangi.
We were there, and I thought they were some of the best Pinots and Chardonnays I've tasted from New Zealand.
And Dry River as well, and I love the Dry River wines. Again, that's another producer. I think everything they make is interesting and worthwhile. Quite hard to get hold of, but worth seeking out.
How is the New Zealand penetration of the UK market?
Very good. Yeah, New Zealand is big news in the UK. We're very fond of New Zealand wines. And if you look at the average selling price in supermarkets in the UK, New Zealand wines achieve the highest per bottle price of all wines. Even they beat France for about £2 a bottle. So they've done extremely well, largely with Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc leading the way. But now in more recent years, the Pinot Noir from the various New Zealand regions has started to make inroads, and people know if they go to and buy a bottle of New Zealand wine, they're not going to be disappointed, and I think that's really important because the quality is just so consistent.
How did you find the Syrah Symposium? I found it quite fascinating. Some of the sessions were more interesting than others, but how did you find the wines?
I was very excited what I was excited by was first of all the quality of some of the New Zealand Syrah that's emerging, and I think will be a big story. At the moment there's not much of it planted here. I think, this is off the top of my head, it's around 290 hectares. Mm-hmm. That might be a wrong figure. It's in that sort of region. It's not very much at all. But when it's good, it's incredible. And also I found the tastings there at the Syrah Symposium were really good tastings, and including tastings of wines from Syrah wines from elsewhere in the world, including a really fascinating tasting of Northern Rhone Syrah, which I think for someone here in New Zealand would have been a really awesome tasting because they wouldn't get to taste those wines very often at all.
Now, one thing I found fascinating about that tasting, and perhaps you won't agree with me here, but one of the speakers was speaking about the approachability of Syrah as a grape varietal, and I found that sort of an interesting concept because if we were to look at those Rhone wines we were tasting, for the average punter's palate, I'm not sure if they would find those very approachable.
No, they're incredibly challenging wines, and I think New Zealand Syrah as well. They're not wines for the masses. They're not accessible wines. They've got edges to them. They're angular wines, the acidity, the structure. And those Northern Rhone wines were difficult wines. and I'd say they were enthusiast wines.
Yes, yeah.
I think different. Australia is different in warm climate regions, and obviously Australia does have cool climate regions as well. The majority of Australian Syrah has much warmer climates, and the wines around are more approachable, have more upfront fruit, and it's a different beast altogether, which is what's interesting. Syrah seems to be able to do this. It seems to be able to do the sweet, fruity wines, but also the angular, cool climate wines. The real complexity, and as I say, these edges that make them quite interesting.
So what do you think is going to be the sort of hot region or hot varietal within New Zealand in the next 10 years?
I think I'd keep an eye out for. I don't know whether it will happen, but if I was, I think Syrah is the one to look for.
Yes, yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
Syrah, and from not just from the Gimblett Gravels in Hawke's Bay, which has obviously been a famous region so far, but also from Martinborough. A lot of Martinborough producers now putting a bit of Syrah in. It's a challenge because not every vintage will work.
Yes.
But when it does work, it'll be brilliant. So I'd say Martinborough Syrah is my outside bet.
Okay.
For New Zealand's fine wine dimension.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for speaking with us at Good Food Revolution, and look forward to seeing you around the conference over the next couple of days.
You're welcome.
Thank you.